What's up, MetaNerdz? Though not packed with missiles or blasters, this little buzz droid would strike fear into anyone who saw it. As they were one of the most deadly units, even if they didn't actively shoot any of the clones or civilians, they inflicted very high casualty rates on the GAR, and struck terror into even the civilian populations. Without any bombs or explosives, they could turn enemy bases, capital ships, or starfighters into an explosive with just a few cuts or zaps. Or simply leave them stranded without power or oxygen, and make time its weapon as pilots would suffocate and crews would become lost in space to eventually starve. They were manufactured by the Colicoid Creation Nest, our favorite cannibal colicoids that gave us the Droidica and Tri-Fighter. Its proper name, the Pistoica, comes from the pisto, one of many of the other violent, devious insects that call Colifor home. Despite their ferocious attitude, apparently pistos make good eating, as they were a colicoid delicacy in the more tropical regions. Originally, this thing was created to work as repair bots, scurrying into any space and welding, cleaning, or reconnecting any issue they came across. That ending, eka, is a word in their lingua insecta that means hireling or drone, which we see in Droidica too. Which perhaps as a bug people, they were differentiating from other organic workers, like male ants being called drones, so you might get the ant eka, droidica, and this eka that looks like the pisto. They would most often be deployed via Discord missiles, which could be fired from a variety of ships including HMP, Vulture Droids, and Dry Droids. There's no direct mention of them being fired from capital ships, but these could be great to augment the point defense guns to create a protective cloud of starfighter devouring demons. Intelligent flak, if you will. They could fit 7 buzz droids inside and were powered by their own onboard reactor with enough fuel for 2 minutes of flight, and could reach a max acceleration beyond 10,000 G. For comparison, the TIE Fighter is only around 4100 G and the stock N1 is 3750. It has a thruster cluster, and they can each individually tilt to give it the ability to maneuver, and these fins help to stay on course in atmospheric flight. The body is covered in heat-dissipating panels, and the homing and guidance instruments are located right above the buzz droid storage. The missile is where a lot of the magic is happening, and it's often an overlooked technical marvel in the CIS military. Pure efficiency with this unassuming design that only costs 2,000 credits. Being a sort of small spacecraft on its own, that could catch up to any ship in the galaxy, and was so famous, or infamous, with a glow of ion exhaust that was so unique that it got its own nickname, Blue Streak. And all Republic pilots knew that these blue streaks would often lead to kill streaks. Now if we look at the cross-section, we see the communication antenna on top that provides rapid coordination with the generals in their capital ship, as well as other buzz droids so that they can move together against a high-priority target. We often just see them swarming the target they blew up over, but when that target was destroyed, they could use their droid brain to pick the next victim or receive a direct order. Their shell is made of at least 3 layers of heat-absorbing material, which allow it to better pass through the ship's energy shields. And these cutaways allow the photoreceptors to see out until that moment when they spring open. We can see the hexagonal pattern of that shell also allows it to survive some serious impacts, as they crashed into some ships or landed on the ground. The very crown of their head was the droid brain, which is loaded with a schematic of every known ship in the galaxy, with this small radiator just below that, to help with letting off some of the heat generated from pushing its sabotage software to its limits. Sensory processors for the eyes are back here, while the 2 smaller eyes are for normal vision of their surroundings, and the main eye has multiple lenses and filters to see through things like smoke or dust, and when used with this X-ray sensor over here, it can actually see through the ship or structure to confirm the location of crucial systems. A really useful feature is that this small reactor that is used to power everything doubles as a means of self-destruction, allowing the droid to position itself at a crucial system they identified, blow themselves up if carving it to bits and severing things was inadequate. Its arms, of course, are the main show, but strangely there's no detail for these vacuum-like arms. Maybe that's just what they are, creating a vacuum seal against things when you couldn't use your magnetic clamp, or for removing debris from the work area, but they might also be small, precision tractor beam generators, which would be an incredible way to move things inside of the machine you're trying to manipulate, projecting these gravity fluctuations beyond things like thick metal plating and holes or doors. This arm ends in a hook appendage. You can see the magnetic clamp on this one, and the circular saw here, along with the puncture and cutting tool and pincher arm over here. While the center is the extendable probe that has a drill head on the tip, opening up the target to insert an astromech-like attachment that can deliver computer viruses or take control of systems. And last but very important are the 4 thrusters at the rear that give it that fine movement control to intercept the quickest interceptors. They were introduced relatively late in the Clone Wars, coming out around the same time as the Tri-Droids, and they were first used on the Venator Renown when it was seized by the Separatists. When D-Squad was discovered on board, the T-Series ordered what would become a fiery showdown between droid combatants. which ultimately forced M5BZ to sacrifice itself out of an airlock, taking most of the remaining buzz droids with him. Those fired on Cato Neimoidia showed just how great Ahsoka had become, when she proved able to save her master's life in this crash landing of their Eta 2 interceptors. And they worked in excellent harmony with what could be considered their big cousin, the B2 Super Rocket Trooper, with these death balls doing their job taking out the pilots of the escort. And during the Battle of Coruscant, they would take the droid life of Obi-Wan's astromech R4P-17, a psychological blow to Kenobi that was so powerful, his brain had to cannibalize neurons related to its very memory.
Don't seem to remember ever owning a droid.
Fancy piloting by Anakin allowed him to save his master, though he did take on one buzz that R2 was all too happy to dispose of, using his fusion welder to hit it right in the central eye, short-circuiting the saboteur. Because it was released so late in the war, there were millions of them still functional after the CIS leadership had been killed and the shutdown code had been sent. So you end up seeing a lot of them on scrap yards, mostly on run yards in the junction, stripping ships from both sides of the war, and though it's not said explicitly, I'd imagine many of them were on Braca as well, getting their little gremlin pincers into the ultimate prize of the Venator. I would also add that huge operation existed to scrap all kinds of battle droids, so it's sad to think that they would do great at salvaging some expensive parts, cracking open B1 and B2 heads to get to their brains, or zipping into the body of a droidica, pulling out those valuable shield generators. And if they weren't scrapped themselves or scrapping their old enemies and allies, many were used in the gladiatorial circuit, with a famous incident being when a tiny buzz took out the mighty Mark X Executioner, using its modified laser scalpel. The Zon Consortium would pick up many of these units as well, but they could be deployed via Star Viper, spreading havoc to everyone from the Empire to the Rebellion, and of course rival crime lords. Thrawn would come to own some early on during his time in the Empire, and they were used by early rebel groups like the Free Ryloth movement, who used that built-in self-destruct feature, modifying it to make it even more deadly, and packed them onto vulture droids to act as drone missiles against the ISD Perilous stationed over Ryloth. The last we hear of them is during the Battle of Jakku, where the 204th Imperial Fighter Wing, Lieutenant Pala Cedia, was acting undercover and hoping to release a swarm of them to disable the New Republic Star Destroyer Deliverance. But this act only managed to kill the engineer and captain, which shows some strange but clever reaction to their programming. Perhaps a novel interpretation of disabling the ship that saw them buzzsawing through the flesh of these two key personnel would take the ship out of the fight quicker than any mechanical option they had. Those pesky astromechs would be useless trying to put the blood and guts back into the meat puppets. And so we might be seeing that same theme of a growing droid intelligence after all these years. Let's pause and thank this video's sponsor, Fume. This is a great way to break bad habits. There's no batteries, no vapors, there's nothing addictive in it, but it will be a perfect replacement for other things you might be trying to kick. You put these flavor cores in and then you just breathe through. It gives a nice relaxing feeling, it has a great mouth taste, and you just spin it right here to adjust the amount of airflow and the amount of flavor. I got a bunch, but if I had to pick, I would say the orange vanilla and mint are my favorite. This is not a vape, there's no toxins or batteries, it's flavored air. Think of vapes like sticky sodas. Fume cores are closer to herbal teas. Fume has served over 150,000 customers and has thousands of success stories. There's no reason why it can't be you. Join Fume in accelerating humanity's breakup with destructive habits by picking up the Journey Pack today. Head to tryfume.com/MetaNerdz or scan the QR code and use code MetaNerdz to get 10% off when you get your Journey Pack today. That's tryfum.com and use code MetaNerdz to get an additional 10% off your order today. That's it for the breakdown, and as for behind the scenes facts, we do have one of the coolest ships/droids that never made it, the Buzz Droid Generator, which would act like a tiny HMP gunship with its own claws for sabotage, but also guns to protect its little Buzz offspring as it deployed them via the chute. It was designed for the Revenge of the Sith video game but never made it, and as cool as it is, it does make more sense to deliver them via Discord missiles that can be fired from all sorts of ships instead of this dedicated drone. The cross-section can be found in the complete cross-sections book, with other info coming from the new Essential Guide to Droids, which are finally available in PDF form. I'll try to put them down in the link below. Please hit that like button, it's the best way to help me out. Subscribe to see more and check out these other videos, I'm sure you'll like them. And thanks again to Fume for sponsoring this video. But most important of all, remember, judge a droid by its size, you should not, and the Force will be with you, always.